Hi everyone. So I'm Frederick, and I'm part of the Ubuntu Yaru community team, and we are a team of design enthusiasts, I would call it, and developers. And yeah, that's the team. And just a shout out to all the guys. You're really great. And today I wanted to show you how we got the classic Ubuntu visuals into Flutter applications on the Ubuntu desktop. So if you look at the Ubuntu desktop, that basically means currently that's Ubuntu desktop design is basically GNOME design. So there's like this little Mars symbol. So it's like 95% of GNOME design currently in usage. And so we got the GNOME shell as a component, a software component, and we got GTK apps. And on top of it, we got the Yaru themes, which are basically GNOME themes with a little bit of orange. So Flutter is made by Google and uses a material design language, and which works really great on the smartphone. And I guess most of you got an Android smartphone and use it every day, and it works pretty well. But there's a problem if you use it on the desktop. My screenshots will come soon. And well, on your phone you got your thumb and it's quite fat, and you're not really good at touching stuff, and it's okay. So the stuff must be really big. So also you got sometimes at least in Material 3 design, I think they're working on it in Material 3 design. But currently, most applications make use of shadows to elevate it from the background, so you can at least see that there's a differentiation between the background and the element. And on the smartphone, you also don't need to segment so much. So there's not much segmentation of UI elements on your smartphone in the material design language. And you also have lots of free-floating elements. And also you got really large components. Back to the thumb, it's really large. If you just move it from the smartphone to your desktop, it can really look out of place. And there's also this thing called a fab, and it's actually an acronym for a floating action button. It's this small dot or disk at the bottom. You can press and activate some actions. For example, in Gmail, you press it and you can make a new email or stuff like this. So it's a most important action on the current page. It's really great for the smartphone. And also, which I've noticed when porting or when using the material design in Flutter apps on the desktop, is that sometimes elements become invisible because those shadows thing, it works maybe on the smartphone better. I don't know exactly why, but when you put it on a big screen, certain elements, for example, inactive switches, become a little bit invisible. And yeah, this is what I said, inactive switches. And cards, you got those cards which also make use of those elevation shadows. And also, again, because of the fat thumb, you got lots of huge space between elements. Like, for example, in a list view, every element is quite large. Yeah, and also the material dialogues, I don't know why, but they don't got a close button, which is sometimes quite useful if you want to get rid of it. So this is an example taken from their homepage. I didn't want to make too much into my presentation about it, but you can look it up. It's a really great homepage. There's a really great documentation about the design language. But this is what I've said. It's a great example. You got the list view, and you got a floating action button, which works quite well here on the smartphone. I think it's really aesthetic. It's everything is on this small screen. Everything is fitted well. But if you put it on the desktop, it looks a little bit out of place, I think. And on the right side, you see GNOME files or Nautilus in the backdrop with the Yaru theme, but I think in the backdrop it's really like, if you're not into the theming stuff, you would probably not notice what theme it is, except the green folders. And on the left side, you see a Flutter application, freshly started from VS Code. It's like their demo application. If you make, maybe I can make one at the end if I got time. And yeah, it's funny because back in the day where I were really, really emotional with theming, and one of my criticisms about the default GTK theme was that I thought back in the day that it was too fat. Like, it's funny because if you compare those windows at each other, I guess the left one looks a little bit more, yeah, fat, I guess. So we need to do something about it. So first of all, back to theming. This time it's Flutter. And what lessons have we learned from theming GNOME? It's a little bit controversial topic, I know. So one lesson, I think, which is really important is do not force your design ideas over technical limitations. Like, if it just doesn't work, just stop it. Think about something different. Like, I think a good example is maybe someone remembers the dark header bar in the light theme of previous Ubuntu releases, and maybe it looked great in the contrast. Every time a GTK developer created a new widget, which is a cool thing to create something new, and you add it in the dark header bar, you can look up the public colors in the CSS file. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. So quite often you end it with like a white widget inside the dark header bar. So this is not so great. So this is one lesson learned. If it doesn't work, just think about something else. Also, in the beginning of our GTK themes, we had really many accent colors. And we're so excited about all those nice colors. And at some point, the theme started to look a little bit like a clown or something, like just a clown juggling with those nice colored balls. So yeah, maybe 2 accent colors are enough. It's also what Canonical uses on their Ubuntu website with the vanilla framework. So you got maybe the orange accent. And for stuff you really need to click, like accept this, accept the most important action on the website, you got the green buttons, and I think that's enough. Also, orange, even if it looks quite well, like with an accent, like for example here on my fancy shoes, like it's great, like a little accent of orange. It's like a little gem of orange. It's really nice. It looks really great, especially on black stuff. But if you color a bigger area with orange, it gets really complicated. Even if you like the color, it can start to actually burn your eye, and it's really not a joke. We had an issue on GitHub where someone was he had his eyes weren't working so perfectly, so maybe it was a little handicapped with his eye. And when he was staring at our orange close button, it started that the X actually started moving. So it was a real accessibility issue. So it's really, orange is a great accent color, but it can be really complicated. This is another lesson. So use color, but use it sparingly. It's important. If it's important, use color. If it's not important, don't use the color. And also, especially if you follow the ideas of other toolkits, don't become too attached to ideas. Like, if they change their stuff, it's okay. Things change, yeah. All right, so what's Flutter? Flutter is a UI toolkit made by Google. And I don't want to talk too much about Flutter, how it works. But you can create Android apps with it, and iOS apps, Windows apps, macOS apps, web apps, and Linux desktop apps. And you can even create embedded Linux apps. I think Toyota is working on something there, but it's currently, I think, in development. So if you want to get if you want to know more about Flutter, just head on to their website. It's really, really great. You got documentation, you got fancy videos, and it's really great. So they use the Dart programming language, which is also can be like a pro argument to use it if you have like a Java background or a JavaScript background or a TypeScript background. You get really fast into it. It's, for me as a Java developer, it's like really like Java on steroids. It's really great. So what are themes in Flutter? I think in most toolkits I've worked with before, like JavaFX or GTK or whatever, there's some kind of configuration file. It's CSS or it's XML, and which is somehow connected with some object in your Java code or in your C code. And it's somehow getting looked up, and those object and the little thing in the element tree gets connected, and so you can change a property. In Flutter, it's a little bit different, or actually it's completely different, because there is no such thing as CSS or XML being used. So in Flutter, basically everything you use inside this widget tree is a widget. And thus are themes. Themes are also just a widget. So they are objects you can create, and you can, with the constructor, which you can attach to certain properties. And also icons are widgets. So basically everything is a widget in Flutter. That's kind of their philosophy, but it's not theory, it's really what it is. So this is the piece of code which you get if you start a new Flutter application. We've seen before this really big blue thing with the blue floating action button. So inside you see there's the build method, which is basically the most important method in this whole application cycle. And with each build you get a rendered frame, and this build method must return a widget, as you can see. And it returns a material app, and it has a property which is the theme, and you can attach a theme data object to it, which has another property, which is the primary swatch, which is a material color. And with that material color, you get all the shades you need for your theme, and Flutter attaches all those shades to your application, and your application is themed. All right. So where do you start if you want to make this? We can look up the Ubuntu design on the homepage of the Ubuntu designers. As I said, they got the vanilla design language, and they also have a new logo. It's new, and we got orange, and we got also some other colors, like some shades of purple. They call it aubergine, and you got black, and you got white, and you got a warm gray. That's their color palette. And which is also really important, in my opinion, is the Ubuntu font. Yeah, in my opinion, it's a really elegant font, and it's not complicated to read it. That's basically the most important part of a font, I think, but it's also really important for the whole identity of the look. There's another picture of the font. Yeah. All right, so what was the first iteration of the yaru.dart theme? It was basically just the material theme with an orange accent and a light and a dark theme and Ubuntu fonts. Yeah, it was basically just material design in orange. And what's the current state? Currently, we picked up the orange and the green buttons. We got dark and light themes. But we also have the full palette we use in the Yaru GTK and GNOME Shell themes. And we also have many different versions currently. So it's kind of amazing, like almost every flavor of Ubuntu uses blue. So we got the Flutter theme in Kubuntu blue, in Xubuntu blue, in Lubuntu blue, and in Budgie blue, and also in Mate. Yeah, or Mati, I don't know how it's exactly spelled. But also in 2204, there are 10 new accent colors, which you can pick in GNOME Control Center via the little color disks, and it's also supported in the yaru.dart theme. And also, because GNOME supports it and Flutter also supports it, there are two high contrast themes for people who can't really see colors. And also we try to take up the border radii of the buttons, which we did. And we cheers, Gesundheit. we axed the extreme material shadows, which I've talked about. We got smaller text fields and the styles. We unified all the sizes, so I don't know, maybe some material stuff eventually is perfectly sized on a smartphone, but if you transport it on the desktop, some stuff is a little bit bigger, some stuff is a little bit smaller, so we unified this, so everything is equally sized. For example, the text fields are sized as the buttons and so on. And we also improved the visibility of switches, so we stopped to make use of those big elevation shadows. We tried to use like subtle borders, and which works quite well, so you can see it when they're inactive. We got the checks in, we got the radius in, we got the dialogues in, even with the close button, but in another library I show soon. And we have also the possibility, which is currently under development, to create a Yaru theme on the fly. So for those rare Windows users here, in Windows you can click the system dialog, select an accent color, and your whole system gets colored with whatever your favorite color is, which is kind of cool, I think. And we also, let's say, dematerialized the app bar, so it's definitely a lot smaller. It's not elevated, so it's not like so much into your face. No 3D shadows, it's slimmer. All right. So, what's also really nice in Flutter, that you got this, it's part of their command line interface. It's a tool called pub. And you can create packages with it, which you can upload or publish to pub.dev. And so you don't need to like get in touch with distributions and, hey, this is my software, I need to, you need to put it into a library, you need to install the library. You don't have any need for this. You can just upload it to pub.dev and people can download it. For example, there are tens of thousands of packages on this website. And you can, for example, you want to have fun with XML, or so you can look it up and download an XML converter package, or you want nice animations, you get there, you get all the animations you want, or whatever. So it's really great, so you need to get yaru.dart inside there, and which we did. It's inside, you can get it with the following command, flutter pub add yaru. If you run this command inside your application's root folder, it gets added into your dependencies. And you can import it. You see it in line 3. I've imported it and I use it in line 16. The theme is Yaru Light now, which and also the dark theme is Yaru Dark, which gets connected to the GNOME desktop. So when you switch the desktop to dark, it turns also dark. Yeah, so we saw the window at the beginning. So this is how it looks. This is a skeleton application if you turn on the Yaru theme. And you can already see some stuff's changed. Of course, it's a really boring application, so you don't see much, but you already see this much slimmer header bar. Everything looks a little bit closer to what we want to make it look. And we also have this widget theme library, so basically for us, so we can test material components with our theme. Yeah, so this is the theme. This is great. We can color material stuff in there. Let's just check the clock, how much time is left. 18 minutes left? All right, maybe I get it. So you can analyze like the types of desktop applications you have on your desktop. And more or less, you get down to the following ones. You get that master details app, I would call it, and I think it's also called in most cases. You get a wizard app, something I call the grid to details app, and of course, just this super simple app, let's call it a one-page app without any navigation. And also, I know some people want to make it die, but it probably will never go away, the classic menu navigation for yeah, really complicated applications like Blender or digital audio workstations, or where you got really hundreds of commands. Yeah. So yeah, pictures. This is two examples of a master details app. On the right side, you see the GNOME Control Center. It's still GTK3, but it's a 22.04 release. On the left side, you see something which we've seen yesterday. This is a progressive web app. You can install it in Chromium-based browsers with a little install symbol. But the point is, it's also a master details app. Even it's pure material design, and again, you see the kind of really big-sized rows. It's still, you click on the left side and you get a detail on the right side. And this is another example of a master details app. This is on files, everyone knows it. You click something on the left and you get the details on the right. So what's a wizard app? A wizard app, I guess Windows users are really known to wizard apps because everything they install, they love to install something with a wizard app. We call apt get and they run their wizard app. It's just what they do, but also it can really be useful. For example, if you want to set something up. So it's a really nice way to set something up. This is a post-install GNOME setup in Ubuntu. And for example, there's an installer in every operating system with a desktop environment. You have an installer. This is, for example, the Ubuntu desktop installer, currently under development. There are more pictures at the end. And this is what I call a grid to details app. Like, we got a grid, you click it and you get to the detail. It's also really common in GNOME applications. This is, for example, GNOME boxes. I really love this application. It's really great to set up a virtual machine and use it. Yeah, this is an example of a classic menu navigation. So yeah, a little question if it's really legacy, if it's used by VS Code, I'm not sure. Anyways, it's something to consider. So, we got this convoluted mess, which is the Spotify client, everything at once. So you got, on the left side, you got the menu, the master navigation. On the right side, you got tabs and what's not, and grids. So we also noticed some desktop patterns, like most of the time you are used to use multiple page applications, which have sections of content. So one page is mostly not enough. And inside those sections, you got most of the time rows or something like smaller elements. Maybe you can expand them or maybe not. And inside the rows, you got a switch, you got an action, you got a check button. This is really common. And also, most importantly, we got resizable windows, which is also something you don't have on your smartphone. Like, you always have this screen; it's always sized the same size, and you don't need to resize it. Yeah, and common widgets like button switches, checks, and radios. All right. Also, and thus, some desktop requirements in 2022, like you really want to have a responsive layout because you have windows, because you can change the size of the windows, so your navigation needs to adapt to this. And it needs to work on huge screens, it needs to work on small windows. Yeah, okay. Or also, you need to find some middle ground between like really tiny, I think there's still some around, like, it's like I have problems with my eyes to see all the small elements, or you got this huge UI like pure material design on the desktop. So maybe let's find some middle ground. All right, so what we did is, like, material design is great, but additionally, to have a little bit more freedom, we created this quite small widget library, which itself uses material components, but a little bit, yeah, maybe a little bit more fitting for the desktop. So there's lots of widgets to check out. I won't show them all here. We got the rows in, we got the dialogues in with a close button, and we got the sections in. Yeah. As you can already see, this already looks a little bit more familiar than what we saw in material design. We got a tab page which adapts itself to the size. So if you, by the way, the whole window itself is another widget which we call master details, and which itself can adapt to the size of the screen. It's funny, that's the wrong screenshot, but we get there soon. All right, and also thanks to one of our Yaru members, we got all the icons in. So we get our beautiful slim 1 pixel Yaru icons in, which I personally really enjoy. And thanks to one of Canonical's guys, we got a package called Handy Window, which itself packages which makes use of the libhandy library. So we get the nice rounded bottom corners on the window. This is where the screenshot belongs, actually. Okay, what we get here. Yeah, so what we did was we created this a settings app, and you may ask why, because there's GNOME Control Center, but it's actually a really nice testing ground if you want to make use of all the nice libraries which have been created for the desktop, for the Linux desktop, because today in the morning we've seen the use of plugins, but there's a lot of actually free desktop APIs you can make use of, and so we got like G settings, we got Blues, Network Manager, yaru.dart, Yaru icons, Yaru widgets, dbus, upower, udisks, yeah, and thanks by the way to Robert Enkel, who created most of the stuff. And so we created the settings app, which makes use of all these fancy libraries. And as you can see here, we got now, I don't know, maybe like 80% of the pages, it's still under development. And we got Bluetooth, we got a nice wallpaper section where you could add your wallpaper or choose the default wallpapers. Or this is also a work by a contributor, Youssef Lashin, who created like this is you can change from the background mode from wallpaper to this is in German now, so it's also internationalized, the application. The background of the day, currently 2 providers, NASA and Bing, and also we found a little thing inside G settings, which is quite funny. So you can also change there's no way to do it in GNOME Control Center, but you can also change your background to a little gradient. We got the nice theme selection in, and we can change the dock positions. We also got the privacy screen. Okay, there's everything inside here, location, housekeeping, screen locking, a nice dialog. It has an animation, which is not shown here because it's a screenshot. Also the screen lock, and also if you want to send Canonical some stuff or you don't want to, so you can turn it off. And yeah, the multitasking section, notifications. This is the power section, which makes use of upower, and this was a contribution by GP Numi. More upower. This is currently under development. It's the display page. This is also by a contributor called Adsen Dev from GitHub, which makes also use of dbus. Yeah, okay, this is the mouse section. It's not really super exciting, but it needs to be done, right? This is the keyboard page. Oh my god, this was quite a journey. I didn't know how hard it is to map all those keys on the Linux desktop, but yeah, it works. And you can select another key map. There are keyboard shortcuts, currently not all. There are lots of more keyboard shortcuts, but I guess we add them at some point. So removable media. You can select a different language. This is a big contribution by Mivo Ligo. This is the accessibility page, and I think it was really a lot of work. You got everything in you want to have on the GNOME desktop. I don't show everything, but there are some dialogues in, like you can select the cursor size and whatnot. This is the clock page, which could also be something we maybe do at some point, like get this, because it's a more or less a playground app, maybe we get some useful stuff outside of there and make our own application, for example, for a clock application, which also uses the dbus API. Okay. This is also quite nice. So you can export your system information. This was made by UP007 or Yaru contributor. So you can export the system information into a PDF and open it or print it. And of course, everything is also available in the dark theme, but I think you don't see it so well because the contrast is a little bit bad now because of the lighting situation, but it works. So how much time is left actually?
5 minutes. If you want questions, you should wrap up.
Okay, so what we also did is a firmware updater, and we also helped a little bit here. So this is the Yaru-fied version of the firmware updater, also with the light theme, and of course the Ubuntu desktop installer. It's a huge open source project on GitHub. These are some nice screens. It didn't make it, but maybe it's available in the next release. Yeah, let's make a nice dia show here. So lots of pages. All right, this is something maybe we got a nice tool set of widget libraries. So maybe in the future we start with some of those apps. All right, thank you. And if you got questions, then shoot.
All right, if we've got questions, first we can applaud. Yay! Then we can ask questions. So, Till, have you got any more T-shirts?
No.
Because you have to give T-shirts if he gives an answer.
But then I get my T-shirt back when I'm asking.
Yeah, it's like a
Yes.
great cycle.
Yes. Did you already start with a pointer setup page?
Yes, I've started, but it's a lot more complicated than I thought. Yes,
Yes,
maybe
yes.
I wait.
I've told in the previous talk.
Yes.
Other questions? I'm checking online. There do not seem to be.
Should one apply theming to Yaru theming to all the platform or only to the desktop ones? And what I should do if I'm targeting both GNOME and maybe KDE that use different color schemes?
All right. So you can. There is a method already inside which connects the Flutter application to, for example, the GNOME desktop. So if you change the application, the GNOME application theme, it automatically changes inside the Flutter app. But the same thing could be done, for example, for the Qt desktop, or the KDE desktop, sorry. So it's totally possible, but it's not currently implemented. But for the GNOME desktop, it works quite well.
And I can partially answer this one as well. The KDE theme settings also write out GTK theme settings. So there's a fair chance that it all, I mean, it takes a couple of steps to get to where it's going, but it probably works.
Nice.
Other questions from the room? Or online? You get 100% from the online group,
Whatever
but no
that
questions.
means.
It means a yay!
Yeah, all right. Great.
All right, let's wrap this one up then. Thank you.
Thank you too.